Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
This meeting is being recorded.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Maya Javani Kakshanam Agnadhokshasam Avyayam Na Lakshya Se Mudha Drisha Nato Natya Dharo Yatha.
Being beyond the range of limited sense perception, you are the eternal, irreproachable factor, pure curtain of deluding energy. You are invisible. You're invisible to the of the luring. You're invisible to the foolish observer, exactly as an actor dressed as a player is not recognized.
Text 20. Tatha Parmahans Hansanam Muninam Amalatmanam Bhakti Yoga Vidhanartham Katham Pashyemahi Striyah.
You yourself descend to propagate the transcendental science of devotional service unto hearts of the advanced transcendentalists and mental speculators who are purified by able to discriminate between matter and spirit. How then can we women know you perfectly?
Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namah.
Let me therefore offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lord, who has become the son of Vasudeva, and the pleasure of Devaki, the boy of Nanda, and the cowherd men of Vrindavana, and the enlivener of cows and the senses.
Namaha Pankajanaභaya Namaha Pankajanmaline Namaha Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajanghrihe.
My respectful obeisances are unto you, O Lord, whose abdomen is marked with depression like a flower, lotus flower, who are always decorated with garlands of lotus flowers, whose glance is as cool as a lotus, and whose feet are engraved with lotuses.
Yatha Rishikesh Khalena Devaki Kansena Ruddhati Chiram Sucharpita Vimochattaham cha sahatmaja vibho Tvayaiva nathena muhur vipadganat.
Oh, oh, here, O Rishikesha, master of the senses and lord of lords, you released your mother Devaki, who was long imprisoned and distressed by the envious King Kamsa, and me and my children from a series of constant dangers.
Vishan Mahagneha Purushad Darshanad Asat Sabhaya Vanavasa Kichritah Mride Neka Maharathas Trato Draunya Astratas Chashma Hare Virakshitaha.
My dear Krishna, your lordship has protected us from a poison cake, from a great fire, and from cannibals, from the vicious assembly, from sufferings during our exile in the forest, and from the battle where great generals fought. And now you have saved us from the weapon of Ashvatthama.
Vipadah Santuta Shashvat Tatra Tatra Jagadguru Bhavato Darshanam Yat Syad Apunar Bhavadarshanam.
I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again so we could see you again and again. For seeing you, that means that we will no longer see repeated births and deaths.
So you opted for YouTube Premium, yeah?
Janmaishwarya Shruta Shubhe Edamana Mada Puman Naivarhatya Abhidhatum Vai Tvam Akinchana Gocharam.
My lord, your lordship can easily be approached, but only by those who are materially exhausted. One who is on the path of material progress, trying to improve himself with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, can approach you with, with sincere feelings.
नमो अकिञ्चन वृत्ताय निवृत्तगुणवृत्तये आत्मरामया शान्ताय कैवल्यपतये नमः.
My obeisances are unto you, who are the property of materially impoverished. You have nothing to do with the reactions and reactions of the material modes of nature. Self satisfied, and therefore you are the most gentle and the master of the monists.
मन्ये त्वां कालम् ईशानम् अनादिनिधनं विभुं समं चरन्तं सर्वत्र भूतानां यन्मितः कलिः.
My Lord, I consider your Lordship to be eternal time, the supreme controller, without beginning and end, the all persuasive one.
Pervasive.
In distributing your mercy, you are equal to everyone. The dissensions between living beings are due to social intercourse.
न वेद कश्चित् भगवन् चिकीर्षितं तवेहमानस्य नृणं विदम्बनं न यस्य कश्चित् दयितोऽस्ति कर्हिचिद् द्वेष्यश्च यस्मिन् विषममतिर्नृणम्.
O Lord, knowing and understand your transcendental pastimes, which appear to be human and so are misleading. You have no specific object of favor, nor do you have any object of envy. People only imagine that you are partial.
जन्म कर्म च विश्वात्मन् अजस्या कर्तुरात्मनः तेर्यन्निशिशु यदाशु तद् अत्यन्तविदम्बनम्.
Of course, it's bewildering, O soul of the universe, that you work, though you are inactive, and that you take birth, though you are the vital force in the unborn. You yourself descend amongst animals, men, sages, and aquatics. Verily, this is bewildering.
गोप्य आददे त्वयि कृतागसीदाम तावद् यते दशश्रु कलिलञ्जना सम्भ्रमाक्षं वक्त्रं निनीय भया भावनया स्थितस्य सा मां विमोहयति भीरपि यद्बिभेति.
My dear Krishna, Yashoda took up a rope to bind you when you committed an offense, and your perturbed eyes overflooded with tears, which washed the massacre from your eyes. And you were afraid. The fear personified is afraid of you. This sight is bewildering to me.
केचिद् आहुरजं जातं पुण्यश्लोकस्य कीर्तये यदो प्रियस्यान् यान् वव्वाये मलयस्येव चन्दनम्.
Some say that the unborn is born for glorification of pious kings, and others say that he is born to please King Yadu, one of your dearest devotees. You appear in his family as sandalwood appears in the Malaya hills.
अपरे वासुदेवस्य देवक्यां याचितोऽभ्यगात् अजस्त्वम् अस्य क्षेमाय वधाय च शूरद्विषाम्.
Others say that since both Vasudeva and Devaki prayed for you, you have taken your birth as a son. Undoubtedly, you are unborn, yet you take your birth for their welfare and to kill those who are envious of the demigods.
भारावतारणाय यन्ये भुवो नाव इवो दधौ शिदन्त्या भूरि भारेण jato ya atma bhuvarthitah.
Others say that the world, being overburdened like a boat at sea, is much aggrieved, then, and that Brahma, who is your son, prayed for you, and so you have appeared to diminish the trouble.
Bhavesmin klishyamananam avidya kama karmabhihi shravana smaranar hani karishyan iti kechana.
And yet, others say that you appeared for the sake of rejuvenating the devotional service of hearing, remembering, worshipping, and so on, in order that the conditional souls suffering from material pangs might take advantage and gain liberation.
Shrinvanti gayanti girnanti abhikshnaşah स्मरन्ति नन्दन्ति तवे हितं जनाः त एव पश्यन्ति अचिरेण तावकं भव प्रवाहो परमं पदाम्बुजम्.
O Krishna, those who continuously hear, chant, and repeat your transcendental activities or take pleasure in others doing so, suddenly see your lotus feet, which alone can stop the repetition of birth and death.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
How old is Shobit?
He'll be turning 10 soon.
Oh,
You can say it's
wow.
10 years old. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for reciting, Shobit. I hope we get to hear you again. It was wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
So enthusiastic. Very nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me get my screen up. Okay. Screen. Sorry, 1 second. Mhm. See, for some reason, I'm choosing my PowerPoint presentation and this keeps coming up. So just give me 1 minute, yeah? PowerPoint slideshow. Okay. I think now the screen is correct. You all can see now?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we are on chapter 8. Prayers of Queen Kunti is what we are discussing for the past couple of weeks, I think, or days. So today we are going to discuss verse number 26. And before we start, we will recite some prayers to the Lord and to Srimad Bhagavatam. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye shrinvantam swakatha krishna punya shravana kirtana hridayanta stohya bhadrani vidunoti shruhatsatam Nastaprayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhakti neshtaki. Are you also, any of you, facing any problems with your internet today? Anybody else? No? I don't know why it's just being a bit weird today for me. Yes. Okay, so today we are going to be discussing verse number 26. Continuing with prayers of Queen Kunti, and today's verse is Janmaishvarya Shruta Shribhir Eta Mana Puman Naivarhati Abhidatum Vai Tvam Akinchana Gocharam. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. My Lord, your Lordship can easily be approached, but only by those who are materially exhausted. One who is on the path of material progress, trying to improve himself with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, cannot approach you with sincere feeling. Okay, we have one page of purport. Does anybody want to read?
Can I read, Mataji, if it's okay?
Yes, please. Yes, go ahead.
I can't see the screen.
Oh,
Can before
everybody?
I can see, but before materially, what is the word, Mataji?
No, it's just being materially. It starts from there.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
No
Being
problem.
materially advanced means taking birth in an aristocratic family and possessing great wealth and education and attractive personal beauty. All materialistic men are mad after possessing all these material opulences, and this is known as the advancement of material civilization. But the result is that by possessing all these material assets, one becomes artificially puffed up, intoxicated by such temporary possession. Consequently, such materially puffed up persons are incapable of uttering the holy name of the Lord by addressing him feelingly, O Govinda, O Krishna. It is said in the Shastras that by once uttering the holy name of the Lord, the sinner gets rid of a quantity of sins that he is unable to commit. Such is the power of uttering the holy name of the Lord. There is not the least exaggeration in this statement. Actually, the Lord's holy name has such powerful potency. But there is a quality to such utternesses also. It depends on the quality of feeling. A helpless man can feelingly utter the holy name of the Lord, whereas a man who utters the same holy name with great material satisfaction cannot be so sincere. A materially puffed up person may utter the holy name of the Lord occasionally, but he is incapable of uttering the name in quality. Therefore, the four principles of material advancement, namely 1, high parentage, 2, good wealth, 3, high education, and 4, attractive beauty, are, so to speak, these qualifications for progress on the path of spiritual advancement. The material covering of the pure spirit soul is an external feature, such as fever is an external feature of the unhealthy body. The general process is to decrease the degree of the fever and not to aggravate it by maltreatment. Sometimes it is seen that spiritually advanced persons become materially impoverished. This is no discouragement. On the other hand, such impoverishment is good sign as much as the failing of temperature is a good sign. The principle of life should be to decrease the degree of material intoxication, which leads one to be more and more illusioned about the aim of life. Grossly illusioned persons are quite unfit for entrance into the kingdom of God. Hare Krishna. Please forgive my mistake.
No, thank you, Mitali Mataji, for reading. Thank you so much. So before we continue, we'll just recite our Mangalacharan. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatrubhascha Kripa Sindhubheva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Okay, very important instructions in this particular verse for all of us actually. So let's see. First of all, Prabhupada in the purport is saying that by possessing all these material assets, one becomes artificially puffed up. And we can see examples of this happening from our own scriptures actually. So most of you will know the story about Krishna, most of you will know the story about Indra and his spiritual master Brihaspati, right? How Indra offends Brihaspati. So in short, we'll just go through the story. So there was a time when Indra was in his court, surrounded by all the various demigods. As we all know, Indra is the king of the demigods. So he was in his court. Next to him was his wife. He was surrounded by all the demigods. There was dancing and music and singing going on. And at that time, his spiritual master, Brihaspati, entered the courtroom. Now, Indra was so puffed up that normally, whenever any such personality will enter, it's considered normal. It's considered that one would actually get up and offer respects. I think we all would do that, immaterial of who the person is. If a guest comes into your house, that is the etiquette. And here it was the spiritual master of Indra, Brihaspati. But Indra was so puffed up in his material opulences that when Brihaspati entered his courtroom, he did not even pay any attention to him. And Brihaspati, being at a much higher level in terms of his consciousness, did not really react or say anything. He just walked away from there. When he walked away, at that realized what a big mistake he has committed. And realizing that, he started lamenting, and then he tried to go looking for his spiritual master to beg for forgiveness. But knowing that this will happen because Brihaspati was a transcendental person, he knew what is going to happen in the future. And knowing that Indra will come to him begging for forgiveness, he decided to not be available for Indra. And, then obviously Indra was lamenting, and, we don't need to go into the detail of that story, what happened then and that. But the point that is being made over here is that when one is materially very opulent and puffed up, one comes to this understanding of he becomes proud. He thinks he owns everything. There's another story again from our scriptures. I've taken these two pastimes from when I was doing research on this lecture. These were the pastimes that were narrated. So, I thought we should also share these pastimes. Again, this story, many of you may have heard, many of you may not have heard. So we'll again in brief talk about this story. So before I actually speak, maybe there are some on this call who know this story. So maybe somebody else would like to share. Is there anybody who would like to tell us this story? Anybody? No? Okay, so here yes, Mitali Mataji.
No,
Is that
Yes, no.
Mitali Mataji?
no,
Okay.
no. I think it's Nard Muni when he was walking it, the way they were Nalkver and Manigriva, they were naked in the pool somewhere, and
Yes.
then they did not make any notes of Nard Muni, and they
Yes.
kept doing that, and Nard Muni cursed them.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kanta Mataji. So this is the story of the two sons of Kubera. They were so materially endowed with everything, not just in terms of riches, but even in terms of beauty. You know, they had all the opulences in the world possible. And here in this scene, you can see that the two brothers were frolicking in this pond with, you know, these young girls. And although they saw Narad Muni passing by, the young girls, out of etiquette and shame, covered themselves up. But these two boys, because they were so puffed up with the opulences that they had, that they completely ignored Narad Muni. And at that time, then Narad Muni cursed them. He cursed them to become trees
Trees.
in Krishna's pastime. So they were the two trees, you know. Anyways, so here again we can see how, because of material opulences, because they become so puffed up, they are not able to understand their own position, and they start to think that they are great, you know, so that they are everything and they own everything that money can buy. So here Prabhupada gives a very, very wonderful analogy for this. So he talks about this one incident. He gives this analogy. It's so simple and yet makes so much sense. So in Prabhupada's lecture, he talks about that. Let's say that I have got the wood, I have given the money for the labor, I've given everything to this carpenter and asked him to make a closet for me. Now, after the closet has been made, can the carpenter say that it is mine just because he made it? He can't, because obviously the material for the closet, you know, the money for everything was provided by me. It was me who did it, right? He's just transformed the wood, and just because he's transformed it, can he say it is mine? He cannot say that, right? So similarly, everything in this material world is being given to us by Krishna. And the example that Prabhupada uses is that, you know, he obviously quotes this verse number 7.4, which is a wonderful verse. And Prabhupada quotes this verse, and this is a verse from the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is saying this. Krishna is saying, Bhumir apo nalo vayu kham mano buddhirevacha ahankara itiyam me bhinna prakritir astada. So the translation is that earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, ego, all together, these 8 constitute my separated material energies. So what is being said over here, what is important to understand is that everything is being given to us by Krishna. Earth, water, fire, air, everything. So just the fact that I will take some earth, add some water to it from the sea or wherever else, you know, burn it, make bricks out of it, and with those bricks I make a skyscraper building or a detached house, and then I say that this house is mine. That is illusion, right? It's the same way where I have given this material to the carpenter, who's then used the material to make the closet, and then the carpenter claims that this closet is mine. It's the same thing. The same logic is here. Everything belongs to Krishna. Just because I have used Krishna's things to make something out of it, I cannot say that this belongs to me. The knowledge is where I understand that this is all Krishna's and I am using Krishna's things. And if I fail to understand this, and if I'm in this illusion that this belongs to me, then actually I am a thief. And in Bhagavad Gita 3.12, again, Krishna says this. I'll just read the translation. In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yajna sacrifice, will supply all necessities to you. But he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. So we have to understand that everything that is being given to us is Krishna's property. Just because we are using it does not mean that it belongs to us, and so we become a thief, right? But the problem is that as soon as we come to this material world, the fact is that we are conditioned, and we are conditioned souls, and thus there is contamination. And these things, like Prabhupada is stating, the four things that, knowledge, beauty, wealth, all of this is just making us more and more sick, more and more contaminated. And in this condition, then we are not able to take the Lord's name with feeling, with sincerity. So coming to that point, Prabhupada in the purport says that a helpless man can feelingly utter the holy name of the Lord. Somebody who has everything tends to forget the Lord because he starts to think that I have achieved all this. So many times you will hear people of great knowledge, like scientists, will actually say, deny the existence of the Lord because they think that it's them who's achieving everything. What they fail to understand is that the intelligence is also given to us by the Lord. Obviously, they've not read the Bhagavad Gita. That's why they think like that. But this is the problem that happens when we come to this material world. Each and every one of us actually comes into this illusion. It is not just people of knowledge, or it is not just people who are extremely wealthy. Each and every one of us come under this illusion. This is very nicely explained again over here, where, so in the verse we read the word akinchana. So here Prabhupada is explaining akinchana means na kinchana. Kinchana means something. So na kinchana means one who has nothing to possess. So the main thing is that he's akinchana. One has to be akinchana, understanding that nothing belongs to me. However, our illusion, the modes of material nature that is acting on us, we start to think, and that is the reason why the moment we start to think right from my body, myself, my intelligence, my hands, my legs, my whatever, and then it extends. The my keeps extending to my family, my wife, my children, my house, my country, it just goes on. And again, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, this verse is so beautiful. It says that persons devoid of Atma Tattva do not inquire into the problems of life, being too attached to the fallible soldiers like the body, children, and wife. Although sufficiently experienced, they still do not see their inevitable destruction. So what starts to happen is, like, now we are in this material world, and this material world is full of problems, and we are always, it's a battle that we are fighting. Existence is a battle. There is a struggle for existence. Now, in this struggle for existence, unfortunately, we are taking the support and shelter of the wrong kinds of soldiers. And that is what is being explained in this verse. We think our soldiers are our body, the strong body, beautiful body, our children, our, the wife, our money, our friends and relatives, the doctors. So many soldiers we have created for ourselves. And interestingly, we have seen that these soldiers were not able to save the lives of our previous generations, like my father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather. They've all eventually have died. They have not been able to survive, although they had all these soldiers with them. And although we have experienced it ourselves, We are not able to see the inevitable destruction. And we still think that these are the soldiers that will be able to save us. So what this verse particularly and in the purport Prabhupada is talking about is that these all possessions makes us intoxicated. And in this intoxicated consciousness, we are not able to then take the name of the Lord with feeling, with complete surrender, because we are still depending on our own strengths, on our own, these fallible soldiers that we have surrounded ourselves with. So Prabhupada is saying that sometimes being nishkinchana or nakinchana is a good place to be in. It's better to be without any possessions, because at such times then we are able to take the shelter of the Lord, understanding that nothing and nobody else can help us. And at that time we turn towards the Lord, praying that, my Lord, you are my only shelter, So again, in the purport, Prabhupada says, the principle of life should be to decrease the degree of material intoxication, which leads one to be more and more illusioned about the aim of life. Now, all of us, we know what the aim of life is. We've had so many sessions in the past 2 years where we've constantly spoken about the aim of life. The aim of life obviously is to be with the Lord. Why is that the aim of life? Because as souls, we are eternal beings. This world is temporary. It is real, but it is temporary. And that is why we cannot have a permanent existence here. And the soul is eternal, and thus it will always crave for being eternal. Death is actually not natural for the soul. So the soul wants to be eternal, and the only place it can be eternal is if the soul goes back to where it belongs. Materialist people don't understand that. Some of them who are very happy where they are, even if they are not very, very opulent, but they are generally satisfied with where they are in their material life. And they don't want to discuss about the future. Just yesterday, I was reading a very, very interesting article. So the question was asked that why is it that spiritualists tend to be kind of not really pessimist, but think so much about the future? And then the answer, the analogy that was given was, children sometimes don't want to go to school and study because obviously, everybody wants to enjoy. So they don't want to study. But the parents who are experienced will tell the children that if you don't study, you won't have a very good future. And so you must study. Now, why is the parent saying this? Because he has experienced it. And thus, the spiritually mature person understands that this life, what I am leading right now, is not the be all and end all. And if I want a better existence in the future, then I have to start educating myself, trying to get the spiritual knowledge, trying to understand what is my end goal, right? So that it's very important. Sometimes people do get asked these questions that why are spiritualists, always thinking about this? But that's how one should be. One has to think that this is not the end for me. And if there is a future, then what should my future be? I know it is a very, the norm these days is forget the future, forget the past. You don't know what it is, just live in the present. But as spiritual beings, yes, we have to live in the present as in endeavor, but we know we are endeavoring to reach the Supreme Lord. That is our goal, right? So anyways, so here Prabhupada is constantly talking about, how if you have all these opulences, then you tend to become more and more illusioned about life, because you are so satisfied, you become puffed up, and you think there is actually no reason why I should think about any negative or the future. I'm happy right now, right? However, that brings us to one point, and very essential to understand this point. Does that mean that every poor person or everybody who does not have any material opulence is a devotee? No, it doesn't mean that. Likewise, it doesn't mean that every opulent person is a non-devotee. So we cannot generalize, and we cannot say that because this person is opulent, because this person is very knowledgeable or has very high education, he cannot become a devotee. That is not the case. But what here Kunti Maharani is saying is that in general, this is what happens because we are conditioned souls, and because we are so caught up in this illusion of I, me, and myself, that it is very easy for us to forget that we are not the possessor of all these things, and the one who possesses everything is Lord Krishna. But I just wanted to share this very interesting story. The story comes in the Krishna book, chapter 86. So this story is about King Bahulashva and a Brahmin, a poor Brahmin called Shrutadev. This is based in Mithila. Don't know how many of you know Mithila. Mithila is where Sita Devi was born. So this story is based in Mithila. There was this wonderful king. He was, a devotee of the Lord. And in the same place, there was a very, very poor Brahmana, Shrutadev, who was living there. And they were both great devotees of the Lord. And the story goes that, I will again be brief. The story goes that once Lord Krishna, along with so many sages, decided to visit these two personalities. So he came to this particular place, the city, and everybody in the city was so happy seeing Lord Krishna, and they were all excited. Everybody gathered around him. And at that time, this poor Brahmana was thinking, how should I approach the Lord and ask him to visit my poor abode? How do I do that? Anyways, he got this opportunity, and he saw that the king was there welcoming Lord Krishna. And at the same time, this poor Brahmana uttered these words, "Oh, my Lord, will you be kind enough to come to my humble abode?" And the king at the same time was asking Krishna to come to his palace. And Krishna said yes to both of them. He said yes to both of them. And the sages were actually wondering, he said yes to both of them. But for Krishna, nothing is impossible. We know that Krishna had 16,108 wives. And he, we wouldn't say divide himself, but he took the form of 16,108 Krishnas and was with each of these wives at the same time, simultaneously. So here he did the same thing. At the same time, he was at the palace of King Bahulashva, and he was at the humble cottage of this poor Brahmana Shrutadev. And they were both so very happy, and they were both, obviously, as per etiquette, welcomed Lord Krishna, washed his feet, and etc., etc. But the point that I'm trying to make here with this story is that it is not that just because you have opulences, you cannot become a devotee. That is not the point. But many a times having opulences becomes a hindrance to you becoming a devotee. And that is why Krishna also says that when I do a lot of favor on my devotee, then slowly I take away everything from him. And the reason why Krishna takes away everything is because at that time, then one is able to completely, without any kind of holding back, is able to surrender to the Lord. But at the same time, Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita, and this is again a very important and interesting verse, and this is 6.41, and I will read the translation, and I've just taken some points from the purport. The unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. So here Krishna himself is saying that being born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy is what happens to these people who was a yogi, but they were unsuccessful. right? And why does he say that? So it says that the yogi who falls after a short period of practice goes to the higher planets where pious living entities are allowed to enter. After prolonged life there, one is sent back to this planet to take birth in the family of a righteous Brahmana, Vaishnava, or of aristocratic merchants. And after that, sorry, one second. Back. And after that, I can't see the screen because of, okay, I can't, yeah, it's better this way. Yeah. And after that, they're given opportunities to live prosperous lives in righteous or aristocratic families. Those who are born in such families may take advantage of the facilities and try to elevate themselves to full Krishna consciousness. So what is being said here is that sometimes opulences, beauty, wealth, knowledge, etc., can become hindrances. What was the four things which Prabhupada is listing in the verpet? He says, high parentage, good wealth, high education, and attractive beauty can be hindrances. And at the same time, it's also said that sometimes being born in aristocratic family or high parentage, like being born in a Brahmana family, can be of advantage. And the reason being that if you're born in a Brahmana Vaishnava family, then obviously right from childhood, I'm just going to stop share. Right from childhood, you have the opportunity to become devotees of the Lord because you see your parents performing devotional activities. So you have the opportunity right from childhood to become devotees. If you're born in rich aristocratic families, then if your material needs are taken care of, then one doesn't have to strive for those needs. And then that time can be used in becoming devotees of the Lord. So that also is the case. And that is why we should be very careful that one must not think that being poor is a qualification to become a devotee and being wealthy is a disqualification. Everything has to be understood in the right context. Yes, sometimes these can become hindrances, but sometimes they can also be extremely helpful. So anyways, in summary, Queen Kunti is saying that if we have the consciousness where we have good education or beauty, start to think that it is because of us, or we start to feel proud about it, then that is the reason for our fall down. We should always remember that whatever we have is because of Krishna's mercy. If we have that consciousness, then it is all right. The moment we start to think like how the carpenter thinks that this closet is mine, or I start to think that this house is mine, I must remember constantly that everything belongs to Krishna. And if that is my consciousness, it is only then that I will be able to surrender to Krishna, knowing that absolutely nothing belongs to me, neither my wife, nor my children, nor the house, nor the money, nor my body. Nothing belongs to me. Everything is Krishna's property. Because everything is Krishna's property, I must try and use everything in the service of Krishna. Everything belongs to him. So I shall stop here. It is 34 past 8. If there are any comments or questions or additions that you would like to make, please unmute yourselves and you can speak here. No questions, no comments. Everybody is satisfied. Okay. Okay, so if there are no questions, then we shall stop here and hopefully I shall see you all next week again. Kripa sindhuve patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
One second. something wrong with the